Okay, so indefinite loops are those, so first of all I talked about the definite loops and indefinite loops. Definite loops are those which contains for a certain number of times. Indefinite loops runs for indefinite number of times until a certain condition satisfy. So we, just like for loop, we have a construct called while. So while loop is a construct that repeats execute itself until a certain condition satisfy, and it repeats the certain block of code that is enclosed or that is defined underneath the while loop and a loop body, and it keeps on executing until as long as the condition is true. Once the condition is false, then the loop is terminated. So the general syntax for this one is while expression. The expression is the condition which it keeps checking and execute all the things that is defined underneath it. It will only execute once this expression, as long as this expression is true. Okay, as long as the expression satisfies. And once the expression fails, I mean it turns to false, then the loop is terminated, and then the next set of instructions which are defined outside the loop will start executing. Okay. So loop variable has to be updated in every iteration. So just imagine that you are checking the condition you entered in this loop. So initially, for example, the expression is satisfied. In a real world example, for example, you come in the classroom because you know the condition is satisfied because it's the time of your class, CSE 1010 class. Okay, you come into the classroom and then you have to keep checking, like it will execute until it will last for like 2.5 hours. Okay, so you keep on checking this condition. If you do not keep checking this condition, you will keep sitting inside the class. You will keep executing the same thing, right, until the policeman came and kick you out. So the purpose is that you have to, once you entered the loop, you have to keep checking the condition. If you, for any reason, if you run into a condition where you are not checking, you will remain inside that particular body, that particular loop forever. Okay, that is called the infinite loop. Okay, which means that before entering the loop, we have to check the expression whether it's satisfied or not. If it's satisfied, you entered the loop, start executing the condition. But as long as you are executing the condition, you should also be checking the expression, if the expression is satisfying or failing or not. So here is an example. Let's say we have a variable named current_power equals to user character is, let's say, y. So we say y while user_character equals y. This condition satisfy now. Okay, print this and do this, and then take another input from the user. So here we are actually updating the loop variable. We are taking the input from the user. Okay, so user can, if user wants to continue running this thing, they can keep providing y, the lowercase y. Okay, and if you want to terminate, you can provide any other key like n. Okay, so I can give you a demo here. So let's create a new code, while demo demo.py. Again, we have, let's say, a equals 3, and while, let's say, a is less than 10. Does this condition satisfy initially? Condition satisfy. What we do is print value a, and we for the time being we do not do anything. Okay, we are not changing the loop variable. So what will happen, it will keep printing a forever. Okay, because I'm not updating the condition, and the while loop's purpose of the while loop, it keeps on running until the condition turns to false. So this condition is never going to be false once it enters the loop. So Python while loop demo, you see it keeps on printing it. So in order to terminate this, You can press Control C on your keyboard, or there are some like I think there are some options here as well, might be, where you can terminate the loop. In old days, when we did not have these kind of sophisticated integrated development environment, if a person would run into an infinite loop condition, they would either have to terminate the IDE or might need to restart the computer. Okay, now you can actually come out of this infinite loop condition. Now what I'm doing here is print a, the value of a, and then what we can do is keep a is, let's say, plus equals 1. Okay, so what will it do? It will keep increasing the value of a. Starting from 3, it will keep increasing the value of a, and once the condition cross, like when a becomes 10, okay, then the loop condition will not satisfy and the loop will terminate. Okay, so let's check this, and you see starting from 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and when the value of a turned into 10, this condition did not satisfy and next thing did not execute, the loop did not execute. Print, let's say done. Okay, you see this statement is outside the loop, so it only executes once the loop is terminated. Okay, and you have to be very careful, like you are already defining, you are updating the value of a, but for example, if we turn this condition into this one, what will happen? It will keep running because the value of a would always be less than 10. Understand? So you should be able to identify whether the loop will keep on running by looking at the condition, okay, and for the conceptual type of exams. Okay, so let's go back. Yeah, so this is actually the loop variable, and we are updating the loop variable here, as same as we did with the case of a. So here again, this is the condition where we are comparing I is less than j, but we are not updating the value of I. So this is actually the condition of the infinite loop. And I have already mentioned Control C. You can press Control C in your command prompt to terminate the infinite loop. Some IDEs have a stop button as well. You can explore this. Okay, let's talk about this activity number 8. So we have mostly now activities. So write an expression to terminate while loop for the following conditions. So there are 3 conditions given to you, and you can check that out. I will pause the video. Oh, no, it's not working. Okay, so maybe we can discuss the solution. We have 2 more activities ahead that may take a little longer, but let's discuss this quickly. So what would be the output for the first one? Iterate while x is less than 100. Simple, x is less than 100. So this is the simple thing. Iterate while c equals g. C equals G. Iterate until C equals a stop. So while iterates until, okay, C equals a stop. Yep. So while C is not equal to stop. Okay, because if C is not equal to stop, it will keep executing the code, and as long as C becomes a stop, as soon as C becomes a stop, then the loop will terminate. Okay. So for versus while loop, when to use for loop and while loop. So general rule is that you should be using for loops when the number of iterations, the number of times you want to execute certain piece of code is already known before entering the loop. So for example, you have to run a loop for, let's say, 100 times. So you should be using for loops. Okay. And if needs to access the elements in a container, if you have to access the data in a container, you should be using for loops. Use while loop when the number of iteration is unknown before entering the loop. Okay. For example, if you are logging into your computer and you have to enter a password, you don't so you don't know, the computer don't know when you will be ended up providing the correct password. So that's a condition of the while loop. It will keep taking the input, comparing it with the password. Okay. Nested loops, we have already seen nested loops. They are commonly referred as an outer loop and inner loop. For every iteration of outer loop, inner loop runs completely. Means for I in range 5, for example, so how many times this outer loop will be running? How many times? The outer loop in this case.
5.
It will be running what? 5 times. Okay. For every iteration, this inner loop will be running 3 times. Okay. So for example, this for the first iteration, when I value is 0, this will run completely. So when I value is 0, j value will start from 0, 1 and 2. Okay. Which means that for every iteration of the outer loop, the inner loop completely runs. Once it is finished, then the next iteration of the loop starts. Okay. So how many times total, I mean, what will be the total number of execution of this print statement? 5 times 3. Okay. So the outer loop value is 5, the inner loop value is 3. So the total number of execution of this statement is 15. Okay. Hmm?
So like, why wouldn't it be like 3 times? Because the inner loop, like after that, what happens?
So again, for the first iteration of the outer loop, this inner loop will run how many times? 3 times. The next iteration, how many times will it run? 3 times again, the inner loop, because it will start as the as a fresh loop. Okay. So for the second iteration, it will run again 3 times. The total number of times becomes 6, right? And then third time again, it will become 9, and then 12, and then 15. So that's why you can just simply multiply the values of the outer loop, how many times the outer loop is running, how many times the inner loop is running, and you will get the value of how many times the total number of execution of the inner statement. Okay. And again, while done equals 0, while j is greater than 2, you can nest while loops as well. You can nest while within for or for within while. Okay. There are no restrictions. There's another thing, loop else, which is not commonly used by the beginners, but there is also an else statement that you optionally include in your while loops or for loops. That else block only executes when the loop terminates normally without a break statement. Okay. So we have seen that we can terminate for loop with the break statement. So if the for loop is terminating without a break statement, it will also run the else block if it is included. Okay. So this is just an additional piece of information. I haven't seen any beginners using this kind of a structure like else with the for or while loops. Okay.